Hey, hello. Testing, testing.
So what we want to do is cultivate cultivate a capacity for kindness. So close your eyes. Take a few moments to breathe in and breathe out. Alrighty, chat, let's get started. Welcome to another Healthy Gamer GG stream. My name is Alok Kanoja. Just a reminder that although I am a psychiatrist, nothing we discussed on stream today is intended to be taken as medical advice. If y'all have everything we talk about on stream is for educational or entertainment purposes only. If y'all have a concern or question, please go see a licensed professional. Yes, I did get a haircut. It was about time. So how y'all doing? Everyone doing okay? Not too bad. Good. Happy to hear that. So today we're going to do a call-in kind of thing. So we've got, and what we're going to sort of focus on is we're just going to check in with the community. So I think that, like, you know, a lot of times we've got stuff that we want to like teach or share, or we have a particular interview, or we want to highlight a particular issue, or we want to understand a slice of society, a slice of our mind. Like, how can we understand anxiety, or how can we understand coping, or how can we understand like meditation? What's the link between ADHD and addiction? Like all these kinds of things. You know, we'll have like a particular slice of something. But part of what we really love here at HG is just the fact that we have a community. And So what we're just going to do today is just check in with people from the community and sort of ask basically, how are you feeling? Like, what's going on in your life? And we'd love to hear from y'all just in kind of a general sort of way, like, what's going on in your life? How are you handling things? Because I think that the world is like changing, right? Like we've got a lot of challenges that we sort of deal with. Some things have gotten better in the world. Some things appear to be getting worse. We're taking steps forward. We're taking steps back. And so we just want to check in with y'all and sort of see how everyone's doing today. So we're going to kind of hop into essentially something like a call-in sort of show. Okay, so let's get started. So how y'all doing today, chat? Thank you very much, USS Cheesy Bread. Oh my God, that's the best aircraft carrier I can think of. Hello,
Hi.
how are you?
Um, um, right now, I'm happy to be here. Um, but generally, I've been feeling hopeless and lost.
Oh my
I'm
goodness! And
doing
can
well.
can you start by telling me what you go by or how I should refer to
Oh,
you?
Leia is fine.
Leia. Yeah, so I'm so sorry to hear that, Leia, that you've been feeling hopeless and did you say directionless?
Yes. Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, I was doing well for a bit. Um, and then I don't know, like even like Monday, I was like really doing well and hopeful, and then just it was like every day something terrible happened, and
Hmm.
I'm back at a place of hopelessness, and like I can't see the future basically. um
That
yeah.
sounds awful.
Yeah.
Well, can you help me understand a little bit when you were feeling hopeful on Monday? How long had you been hopeful? Because
It was like building up, and then, well, actually, I think it was building up, and it was just like a full day or two of just like, things are gonna be really good actually. And I was telling my friends like, I think things are gonna get better for all of us, and then it definitely didn't. Like.
yeah, can you tell me? Can I ask you a couple questions about that?
Yeah.
So what? So it sounds like you had a string of bad stuff happen to you.
Yeah.
Can you share? Do you feel comfortable sharing like what happened?
I can try.
Okay.
Um, I had people close to me experience like huge loss, right?
Okay.
And then my family as well. I experienced a huge loss in my family like back in January, and I hadn't really gone back more than a few times, and I went back this past week, and to look through the estate stuff.
Oh my goodness.
Um, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I had like, my very close friends lose people, like, and I won't tell their,
Yeah, of
stuff, but it
course.
was like a big deal.
But
Um, yeah.
if I'm
And
hearing, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna keep going,
Yeah, keep
but
going. Oh my God, there's
okay.
more.
Um, I experienced, like, rejection, so that was hard, but it was like I was feeling really positive about it, but then I think with all this other stuff, I was like, oh, I don't know if I can handle this.
Sure.
Um,
In rejection in sort of a personal way or professional way or what?
um, One specifically was like romantic.
Okay.
And in other ways, I'm also job hunting, so that's like the whole thing. Um, but it was like a very close friend of mine that I have feelings for. But um, and I was like, you know, obviously, usually I would be fine, I think. But I think with everything else,
Yeah.
it just became kind of unbearable, and it was like everything in my every section of my life felt tainted and just bad,
Yeah. I mean,
basically.
it sounds like you can't catch a break in like any dimension. It sounds like
Yeah.
your friends are going through a lot, your family is going through a lot, you're going through a lot, and it
Oh,
also sounds like there's like actual literal like death involved.
yeah. And then of course the nail on the head was like, what Friday or whatever when the Roe v. Wade stuff happened. It was like, wow, I feel completely powerless. like in anything, because I am a woman in the US, and that's it just, it's terrifying.
Yeah,
um,
when you said I'm a woman in the US, my instinctive response was my condolences, which is
yeah.
such an absurd thing to say. So I just laughed a little bit there. I did sometimes I laugh arguably inappropriately when people are
No,
suffering,
it's
but
okay. I've been like laughing this whole time, like out of nervousness, so I get it.
yeah. So I mean, Leigh, it sounds like I mean, can I just think for a second? Because that's
Yeah.
so my first thought is when people call in, presumably I'm supposed to be able to help them in some way, right? Like that's why people call in, is that
Yeah.
we're here to help. The first thing that I want to say is that I don't know exactly what we're going to be able to do for you, but I oddly enough, I'm not hopeless with you, but I can absolutely see how this is not something that can be fixed with a bit of advice or some kind of like, you know, revelation. Like sometimes when people
Mhm.
struggle in our community, I think it's because they're doing something wrong, right? So either we'll get a particular thought that takes control of our mind, or we'll have like a cognitive bias, or, we're spending too much time on the internet or things like that. Whereas in your situation, I genuinely feel like, I mean, this is a lot of this stuff is really has nothing to do with your choices.
Mhm.
And I can totally understand how it feels hopeless because it's not like you're doing anything wrong. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Uh, it's just that hopeless feeling. I do want to say, like, your work has helped me a lot. And I just appreciate that generally, even if you feel like you don't have like revelation right now, but like the past few months, it's been very helpful.
Can you help me understand that a little bit? What's been helpful?
You did this interview, I think, with I can't find it. I think it was with Mizkif, but it was like a meditation where like you could feel the you higher than you like pulling your thoughts back, basically. I don't know. This is sorry if this is like completely irrelevant, but
No.
it was like a huge thing for me because it helped me realize like soul, like there is a soul. Like I don't know. It was a huge spiritual thing for me, and it's part of like what keeps me going right now. Um,
Leia, I'd love to hear more about that. Are you comfortable talking about that for a little bit?
yeah, if it's okay, we talk about spiritual stuff. I don't. I, I mean, I assume it is, but
Yeah.
um,
I mean, because I think in a situation like this, when we can't bring people back from the dead and we can't make people fall in love with you,
yeah. um,
I think I'd love to hear a little bit about that practice and what you sort of experienced and what you've learned from it.
yeah. I mean, I don't fully know my beliefs or like what to
Sure.
label them or anything, but I know like I think I believe in souls and like reincarnation and stuff like that. And so I keep finding myself being like, well, if you do just quit now, you're just gonna be going back into it. Like, I don't know, like I
Hmm.
might as well try to make the most of this body and life and everything. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. So I actually, Leia, I really appreciate your perspective because I think sometimes we start with beliefs. We say, like, this is what I believe. But what I
Mhm.
really hear from you is that you're figuring it out,
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
kind of like one sort of painful step at a time, which
Yeah.
which is exactly how kind of in a sense, quote unquote, figured it out for myself. It was like it's really confusing, but I really found that meditation helped me have a couple of foundational experiences that then
Mhm.
helped me like organize my life. And
Yeah.
if you're open to it, I'd love to try to facilitate that process for you.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about when you did that practice. What did you experience?
I'm not sure how to describe it, but it was like I just remember feeling like completely shocked. Like I don't know, just not shocked, but like it was just mind blowing. like that experience. It was like I just felt in touch with myself on such a level. I don't know.
Yeah. So let me ask. No, that's great. So I think I understand what you mean,
Yeah.
and I know it's kind of weird. So like, there's the you, right? So the you involves like a body and a mind,
Mhm.
and hopelessness happens within the body and the mind. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And what you experienced in that moment of like knowing yourself, was that within the mind or outside of the mind?
It felt outside. Well, I guess like knowing that I was knowing my mind was in my not my mind, but myself was in my mind, but like the actual event was past it, you know.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that you had some kind of experience that was, we use the word sometimes, transcendent. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? So it's kind of beyond
Yeah.
mind. And then later your mind made sense of it,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So the way that you put together your beliefs happen within the mind, but then, these experiences happen outside of it. So,
Yeah.
and this is where, do you mind if I ask how old you are?
I'm 21.
Okay. And this is the kind of thing where, like, I'd sort of say that you've had a lot of bad stuff happen to you. And it can be very common for your mind to feel hopeless. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah.
But I also think, I know it's kind of weird, but like, I think that your mind, especially when it's hopeless, is not a very good predictor of the future. Does that make sense?
Probably true.
What do you think about that? You're more than welcome to disagree.
Um, I mean, it makes sense. It's just like one of those places, you know, where like I haven't talked to any of my friends about it because I know like anything they say is not gonna really touch it, you know?
What do you mean
So
by
it
that?
is just like if they're gonna try to say positive things, and I just know I'm in a space where like it's not gonna resonate, you know?
Yeah.
Even if like objectively I can say that the hopelessness probably isn't definitive actually of like what's gonna happen. I don't know.
Yep. Yeah. So let's talk about that for a second. So, objectively, it may not be accurate, but it
Yeah.
feels overwhelming,
Yeah.
right? The objectivity of the situation doesn't friggin' matter.
Yeah.
How do you understand that?
I don't know how to make like make myself come back to the surface, I guess, you know.
Yeah. So that sounds like you're drowning.
I feel like it.
Yeah. So I think, Leigh, my heart goes out to you. It genuinely does. I'm hopeful for you, and I don't expect you to be hopeful for yourself. And I think that's okay. What do you think about that?
Yeah.
So how did you come to start hoping for stuff on Monday?
Just felt like I think I had um I just felt like things were gonna get better or like I saw good things could happen. Nothing specific, just like I think good things are gonna happen from now on, you know? Or something good will happen.
Yeah, you'll catch a break. So things were looking up.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and oddly enough, that's probably what made all these different challenges so much worse,
probably, yeah.
right? Is that you were foolish enough to hope for a few
Yeah,
days. And look at where it got you, Leia. Where did
yeah,
it get you?
yeah. Uh,
So this is what I'd say. First thing, Leia, is I'm really really happy that you were able to do some meditation and you were able to have this transcendent experience. I would encourage you to continue meditating. Are you able to do that, do you think?
Technically, yes.
I'm sorry, do you say mentally yes?
Technically, yes. It's just
Technically.
one of those things where you gotta like do it.
Yeah, so that it's a really good point, right? So I think sometimes, so this is the tricky thing about meditation, is that oftentimes we meditate for something. The
Mhm.
problem is that if you're meditating for something, you'll open it up to feelings of hopelessness. I don't know if that sort of makes sense, because if I'm meditating for a purpose and then I start to believe that that purpose isn't possible, then the hopelessness will infect the meditative practice.
Like having expectations,
Yeah, not
maybe.
expectations. Yeah, but like if let's say I'm meditating to help with my ADHD,
Mhm.
and then if I start meditating and my ADHD doesn't get better, what happens to my motivation for meditating?
Right. It cripples.
Absolutely. What a great word. Cripples, right? So I know
Yeah.
it sounds kind of weird, but I think that like being able to meditate in spite of not having any reason is going to be a really important step forward for you.
Yeah,
Because
that makes sense.
I think the main thing here is going to be the more that you can ground yourself in that transcendent experience, and it'll come again if you keep at it. If it happened to you once, like whatever happened in your brain can absolutely happen again.
Mhm.
And I think that that place will be a source of strength for you. So that place can sort of help you understand that like the hopelessness in your mind is completely valid and also may not be correct. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah.
The other thing to consider is that, you know, some of what you're feeling is probably like, honestly, like a natural consequence of what you've been through. So as you take like emotional critical hit, do you play games?
Yeah.
So as you get emotionally critically hit again and again and again, you're going to be like, you know, your health bars flashing, like your character has like some debuffs and things like that. And that's like basically it sounds like the state that you're in right now. Is that
Yeah.
how it feels?
Yeah.
And so the kind of weird thing is the good news is that in a weird way, I think time is actually like on your side, because I just don't think statistically this kind of crap is going to keep happening to you.
I feel like it has like my whole life. But I
Okay.
get what you mean.
Yeah, tell me about that. So maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know. I just feel like I've always been going through like traumatic events or like obviously not like the worst tragic traumatic events you could go through, but like, it's still bad. Um so it just feels like I never catch a break, or like I do for like those 2 days and then it's like, "Oh, reality check." I don't know.
Yeah, so that's where one of two possibilities is there. One is that you're just genuinely screwed in terms of karma. The other thing to consider though is that the mind's ability to notice the good and notice the bad can be adjusted. So sometimes like there are people who will have like, you know, one good thing happen and one bad thing happen. It's kind of like if you think about like if I take a test and I answer 89 questions right and 11 questions wrong, all everyone focuses on is the 11 questions I got wrong. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah.
Do you think you could be doing that?
Uh, I mean, there is joy in the little things.
Okay. So I'm hearing no. So that's what I'm hearing there, Leia, is there's joy in the little things, but there's crap in the big ones.
Kind of.
Yeah, that sounds bad, dude.
Yeah. I mean, I just feel like I'm surviving and like I mean, I have my cat and like that's like
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is that you've got consolation prizes, but you don't have like the real prizes.
not yet.
Help me understand the yet in that statement.
I feel like I'm always thinking like, you know, at some point there's got to be, you know, it's got to get better at some point.
Yeah,
Something's got to give, basically.
yeah. For what it's worth, I agree with that. I know it can be hard to hold on to that hope when you're kind of getting fatty crit after fatty crit.
Yeah.
right and left. And I really applaud essentially your resilience, like, because it's not easy to even hold on to that much hope. And it's actually okay to feel hopeless from time to time. For what it's worth, I do think that like karmically, like, you know, your life should get better at some point.
Yeah.
But it sounds tough. What do you do to sort of, how do you manage these kinds of feelings?
Um, right now I'm isolating, which is bad, but probably um this is like I mean, it's been a few days now. I just haven't talked to anyone about. So talking to you is like, oh, I don't know. Um, other than that, I've
How does it
been
feel?
trying to do art, but
Okay. So I'm hearing that all the stuff that you should be doing, right? Like, oh, Leah, you're feeling bad about yourself. Paint a picture and do some art
yeah,
therapy. Meditate. Oh, Leah, do all of the things and pull yourself
yeah,
out of the darkness with all of your effort.
yeah, exactly. I'm eating and sleeping, and
Yeah, Leah,
I don't know.
it's okay to get owned for a little while. You know, for what it's worth, I'm glad you called in today. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I am too. It's just I didn't expect to be here or talking to you, and it's just like uh, uh, I don't know. It's like I was wanting someone to tell me good things, and I don't know. It's just crazy.
What are you getting from this conversation? Am I telling you good things?
Not. I mean, kind of. You're saying that you're hopeful, and it is just crazy because I've been listening to your podcast like every day for like a couple months or a few months, so it's just surreal, you know.
Yeah, so I don't know if like talking to me right now is good luck or bad luck. Like I don't know if this is like positive karma in the sense that, oh, you get to talk to Dr. K and maybe this is a lucky break for you. Or it's like actually like bad RNG because I can't tell you something to magically fix your life. So you got to talk to Dr. K and even that didn't turn everything around. Oh, like which is
No,
it?
I don't expect you to turn everything around. And I don't mean lucky in like a weird way, just that someone who's helped me so much with like feeling hope in the past, and like you're here now, and it does make me feel like hopeful. You know, I don't know if that makes sense or
I don't quite get it, but I don't know that I need to.
I'm sorry.
No, seriously. I think the important thing is that, you know, so here's what I'm hearing from you, Leia. First of all, like you've had a really crappy week, basically, where there's like national stuff that is really, really concerning for your future and the autonomy of your body. That's bad enough. There was a romantic rejection, which is also bad. Sounds like stuff on the job front isn't going ideal. And it sounds like friends and family have recently dealt with death that you kind of
Mhm.
got like front and center, right, when you went
Yeah.
home. And so you're kind of
Yeah.
getting like bodied on all sides. And I think that like, you know, it's kind of interesting because feeling hopeless in a situation like this is actually like pretty normal.
Yeah.
And I think you've sort of retreated into yourself and you're kind of like hibernating, which is also okay. And I'm really, really glad that you probably stepped out of your comfort zone a little bit and decided to come here today and talk about it a little bit. Like I see you taking steps forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I'm sorry I can't fix everything for you. I really wish I could. I wish I could give you a hug. That's really what I think you need more than anything else right now. And also like there are things that I'm really kind of hopeful about, which is sort of weird. I know that in terms of my spiritual understanding, like suffering was a huge, huge part of forcing me to like look at my life and really figure out what was important to me and like what I cared about, as well as sort of understanding like how to influence my mind and stuff. Like,
Mhm.
and I sort of see that in your path as well, that you sort of had this meditative experience and now you're going through all of this crap, and like it's hard for me to describe in any other way, but what gives me hope is that people who have transcendental experiences in meditation and then go through a bunch of crap are the ones that actually do the best, like 3 to 5 years out.
Interesting.
I've seen that pattern time and time and time again. And there's probably like some kind of bias there because, you know, I'm a psychiatrist. So sometimes the people that come to me are really in despair. And then they sort of have this transcendent experience. And then like, I think now is the time, Leia, where you've really got to figure out, and you don't have to do this all at once, but like what life is. Like, what does it mean to exist? What does it mean? Like, what part of you is real? What's your body? What's your mind? What's your soul? And then hopefully through that process, you'll also begin to understand like the influence of karma on this cycle that you're kind of going through and things like that. In terms of like, these are all things that if you believe in the theory of karma and reincarnation, this is sort of like you're paying off all of your bad debts. And this is what's really, really challenging for a lot of people is they think that like, you know, paying off a debt sucks, definitely, because you put in time and effort and then you don't get anything for it, you know? But it doesn't continue forever. What continues forever is if you continue making bad decisions.
Right.
What do you think about all that random crap I just threw your way?
I mean, it makes me wonder, you know, because I've thought a lot or tried to think about like karma and like, you know, are all these things because of, I don't know, just why, you know?
Good. I think
I don't fully understand.
yeah. So
Like,
that oddly enough, Leia, like that makes me hopeful for you because like to be 21 and to ask why. And here's the thing that I want you to really think about. Like if your life was like completely average, you would not be asking why with the desperation that you are. Does that make sense?
yeah.
If it doesn't, let me know.
Oh,
Let,
it does. I just, yeah.
and this is what makes me hopeful is that that desperation is absolutely necessary for true spiritual growth. Like Buddha had that desperation. He was asking why. His situation was a little bit luckier than yours in the sense that he had everything. And it sounds like in some ways you've got nothing. Although I think you've got a lot actually. So it sounds like you have family, you've got a cat, you've got friends who care about you. You have us here at the HG community, right? So
Yeah.
and I think as you continue to ask that why, and then like the other thing I'd say is like start taking care of yourself maybe a little bit better. It's fine to have, you know, isolate for a little while, but like I want you to really think a little bit about concretely like what you can manage in terms of like, you know, taking a walk or meditating. Like what do you think you can do despite the fact that you're feeling pretty down and hopeless?
Yeah.
Is there
I mean,
something you think you can do, like in terms of taking care of yourself or supporting your body or mind a little bit better?
um, I don't know. So I feel like trying to, I mean, probably like talking to my friends
Okay.
would be good. Or, um, like when I get a new job, it'll be easier. I don't know.
What makes it hard to do those things? Get a new job or talk to your friends?
Oh, the friends thing is like, because I've been feeling this such intense, heavy feeling. I don't want them to feel responsible for like, um, how I feel or what I do, you know? I don't want them to feel like they have to fix things for me or anything.
Okay.
Because I know, like I said, I know like it is at such a level that I know if they try, it's gonna just pull them into my hopelessness. I feel or like, I
So
don't,
it sounds like you care about your friends a lot and you're almost trying to protect them from you.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
What do you think about that?
yeah. I don't know. It's tough. I know they're going through so much, like, and I feel like my feeling this way is just gonna pull them down, you know?
What do you
So I've
think they
just
would say about that?
they would want me to talk to them, but I just don't see it being productive sometimes.
Okay, so as someone who's had a transcendent experience, you don't see it as being productive. What is the you in that sentence?
That's my mind. Or
And how much can you trust your mind right now?
not very much, I guess. Wow.
So, Leigh, I'll give you one. Do you want to explain the wow?
Just like uh realizing over and over like, oh, I can't really trust my thoughts at the moment.
Yeah,
It's just
but
interesting.
which is pretty cool because your recognition that you can't trust your thoughts is like pretty neat, right? So you can sort of trust them.
Yeah.
You just, yeah, right? It's like, no, you can't trust your mind. Therefore, you can't trust the conclusion that you can't trust your mind. So, so,
Yeah.
so this is, Leia, this is how purification of the mind works, right? So like a tiny part of your mind just got purified. And this is where like, this is where I kind of say that this, your life has given you good karma and negative karma, and it's your friend's karma to deal with your crap. And I want you to go into that interaction. So first of all, I want you to reach out to your friends. Secondly, I want you to reach out to your friends mentally prepared for what's going to happen. You're going to feel guilty. Agreed?
Yeah.
They're going to try to help you. Are they going to problem solve, validate, or both?
Both.
So when they problem solve, what is your mind going to do to the problem solving?
Resist it.
Which is okay. And when they validate, what is your mind going to do?
I don't know. I just feel like, okay. Uh
So your mind may resist that too,
yeah, in a way. Or
right?
just be indifferent to it, kind of.
Yeah. So let yourself be loved by your friends, right?
Yeah.
And if you feel guilty because they're helping you, first of all, they signed up for that crap when they decided to be your friend. So that's part of their karma. And also, this is the kind of thing where I want you to accept their help and also pay it back.
Yeah.
Right? So we've got two options to be karmically neutral. One is that they don't help you and you don't help them, or they help you and you help them.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of thing where what I see in society today is that, like, we all need each other's help.
Yeah.
So are you getting help through this conversation?
I think so.
Are you helping other people through this conversation?
Potentially. I feel like there's a lot of hopelessness in the world right now, and
Yeah.
people probably relate to
Yep.
that.
I think you're helping people a lot. What do you think about that?
That makes me want to like cry.
Yeah, I'm tearing up too. I don't even know what the hell's going on. I don't know.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Spiritually. Oh.
They're not bad tears. I'm just
Oh
surprised.
my god.
Okay, go
Are
ahead.
you okay, Dr. K? Do you need to talk about it?
Yeah, I know. I'm talking about it. I can feel my feelings. It's all right. You had a question?
Yeah, so like the spiritual stuff, I don't know where to go with it basically. Like I recognize like I have a soul and that, there's probably karma and stuff, but like I don't know where to go with that.
It's a great question. So, here are a couple things that I'd recommend. The first is that you continue practicing. So, like, ultimately, Leia, like, the most important thing is going to be your experience, because when you, like, experience things in meditation, that's like the core of the knowledge. But there's also another component, which is I think what you're asking about, which is like, how do you make sense of what happens to you in meditation? Is that what you're kind of looking for?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd say there are two things you should do. One is you should try to find a sangha, so a community of some kind. So see if like I'm not going to ask you where you live in the United States, because doxing and all that. But so like there's got to be some kind of like meditation center, community, temple, like whatever in your area. Like even in the most, I'm from Texas, and like Texas is not very, in a sense, pro meditation, but there's a ton of meditation stuff like all over the US now. So I know it's going to feel kind of like anxiety provoking, but I would just go to one of those places or call one of those places and say, hey, I'm interested in learning more about meditation. Do y'all have like lectures or like whatever? So you can go to just any place and start getting exposure. And that's where basically your karma will sort of like set you up for this kind of stuff, where you may find, a couple places in your area, try a couple and just go there and just see if you like the vibe.
Yeah.
The other thing that you can do is read. So I think, like a lot of good meditation teachers that are introductory, like Alan Watts is really good. There's also like, you can sort of read like a commentary on Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. It's a little bit, in a sense, advanced because there's a lot of like esoteric concepts in there. But I like the Bhagavad Gita by Eknath Easwaran is like a very, very good introductory book for Western people, like who don't like sort of didn't grow up with this culture. That's generally speaking, regarded as a religious text from the Hindu tradition. So if that rubs you the wrong way, you don't have to do that.
I don't know how to spell that.
That's totally fine. I think Tech Teller is going to hook you up with both of those.
Okay, thank you so much.
I'd start with, a couple of books and then actually try to go like hang out with people who meditate. And they probably will have like lectures and stuff.
Thank you so much. That's really helpful.
You're very welcome, Leia. Okay. We have a visitor. Okay, Avi, Daddy's working, sweetie.
Oh.
You're so hungry? Okay. Sweetie, okay. Oh, sweet, you can't be. What? Okay, Leia, I think I'm gonna have to go for a second. So I'm gonna say goodbye to you.
Okay.
Okay. Do you want to say hi to Leia?
Hello.
Leia's feeling sad
Oh.
because she had some bad stuff happen to her.
How?
What do we do for people who are feeling sad?
I don't.
You don't know? Okay, we'll talk about it. Leia, excuse me for a moment, but good luck to you.
Thank
Okay.
you so much.
I have to
Thank you.
go put with this child.
Oh.
Okay. Well. All right. Come on.
Oh my gosh. That's so cute.
Okay. Chair stream is finished. Chair stream. Okay. Well. All right. Leia peaced out. Okay. Well, good luck to Leia if she's out there listening. Share stream is finished. Okay, do we have someone else coming in? Why did she cry? Because she wanted daddy and mommy is taking care of her. Hello.
Hi. I'm Tessie.
Hi, Tessie.
And I believe it was How Am I Feeling Today?
Yep.
I'm feeling great. I'm living my life one day to the next, taking care of myself and the people in my direct circle of contact. I realize things in the world not great, but I can do what I can do to make the life I have the best it can be.
Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, I had a rough early time in the pandemic that kind of made a lot of things pretty hard for me. And one thing that I had to kind of do was realize what was important to me.
And how did you realize what was important to you?
Slowing down a lot. Like I had a really bad work situation. And I developed a really bad panic disorder due to that, which was not great. I can talk about it now because I feel like I'm well past it. I haven't had a panic attack in about a year now, which is great for me. Feels great.
Great.
But really like slowing down, I eventually got fired from that job when I like started reporting the abuse and stuff. They got rid of me pretty fast. It was definitely a blessing, not even in disguise kind of, but like the week that they let me go, I already had a job lined up and everything, but it didn't start for a couple weeks. So like I went to see a couple of national parks, and things started getting better for me almost not quite instantly, but very soon after, getting away from the bad situation. So
yeah. So and you mentioned something about like sort of discovering what's important to you and also sort of recognizing something about what you can control and what you can't. Did you say something like that?
Yeah. I mean, I kind of take now, especially every day, about things that I can and can't control. And that's definitely something I started learning even before that. During the pandemic, I had a lot of friends who were getting very anxious about what was going on and about like what other people were doing during the pandemic. And what I could do was, I could protect my health. I could mask when I went out or limit how much I went out. When the vaccines came out, I made sure to get vaccinated, and the people in my household did the same. But at the same time, like I can't tell other people to get vaccinated or wear their masks or take care of their health for other things that are gonna help them like not get sick or get sick less if that situation happened to them, I guess.
So Tessie, let me ask you a question. So sometimes when people struggle with things that sometimes when something is out of someone's control, they can't like let it go. They get so caught up in it, their mind gets so dominated by it that they just can't sort of like let it go. How are you actually able to do that? Like, everything that you said is logical, but letting something go is not necessarily about logic or not entirely about logic. How do you think you're able to let things go that are not out of your control?
It definitely was a process for me.
Can you tell us a little bit about the process?
Yeah. Can I think for a sec?
Absolutely.
It was definitely a lot of almost like reassuring is the word that's coming to mind, but it doesn't feel exactly correct to say I was reassuring myself, but it was kind of like telling myself that, I mean, I think it was honestly kind of the panic disorder and working through that. Like my boss was incredibly negative towards me for a long period of time. And so a lot of that was like kind of realizing no matter what I was doing, she was going to treat me poorly. Like I could be doing great, treated poorly. I could make a mistake, being treated poorly. I could be doing the most work out of anybody in the office, and I was going to be treated poorly. And so that helped me kind of detach from it a little bit because it was not something that I could control. I mean, it got hammered into my head. No matter what you do, you know, you're going to get like yelled at and written up.
Got it. Yeah. So Tessie, that's really interesting. So let me see if I'm kind of understanding this in a bizarre way correctly, which is that if we're thinking about sort of how to let go of things that we can't control, it's almost like you had a situation that taught you in no uncertain terms that nothing you can do will affect your manager's behavior. And you tried everything that you could. And it's almost like you learned that lesson from a toxic work environment. But what I'm almost hearing from you is that once that sort of realization clicked in your mind, you started to realize that that could be applied to situations outside of work. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Which is really interesting. So first of all, I'm very happy that you haven't had a panic attack in a year. That sounds fantastic. For everyone listening out there, I think sometimes we think about mental illness as being permanent. Like once you get diagnosed as bipolar, that you will be bipolar for the rest of your life. And some people do struggle with things lifelong. But I've seen a lot of people who are in what we call sustained remission because we don't cure anyone in psychiatry. But I'm really happy about that. And I think it's also really interesting to hear a little bit about, even through adversity, what you've learned and managed to take away that's actually like enriched other parts of your life. So that it's fascinating. So I'm so glad you shared that. Do you have any kind of thoughts or advice for people who are, let's say, like 6 months, 1 year before where you are now? Like, you know, if you could go back in time and talk to yourself a year ago, what would you say to yourself?
Keep doing not necessarily what you're doing, but trust that even if you're not okay right now, it doesn't mean that you're not okay forever. I mean, it kind of echoes what you said, because even in the throes of a panic attack, sometimes, like especially after I started seeking mental health assistance, I guess, that I could realize that I was not okay right then, but that doesn't mean I wouldn't be okay in the future. And like that reminder helped quite a bit, you know?
Okay. Yeah. So, Tessie, I'm hearing a couple of really important things that I just want to highlight. The first is that the present does not necessarily predict the future, right? Which I imagine everyone who's interested in the stock market and crypto is feeling front and center right now. But it's really hard because sometimes when the mind is suffering, like we really think that this is going to last forever and that the present will never end. But the nature of stuff in life is that it tends to fluctuate over time. So that's a really important realization. Fair?
Yeah, I'd say so.
I think there are a couple of other things that I don't want to, there are 3 other things that I think you've done, 4 other things that I think you've done, which are, I think, very important. And basically when I see people do these different things, I think that it's a very good prognostic factor, meaning that it speaks well for their future. The first is that it sounds like you left your work situation. It turns out, got fired, but had already lined up another job, so we're gearing up to quit. So you changed your toxic environment. Is that accurate to say?
Yeah, I had been looking for a long time before I thought it was hilarious. I went into the meeting about to give my 2 weeks, and they were like, we don't want to hear it, you're fired. I was like, okay, bye.
Fantastic. So I think sometimes it does require you to change a toxic situation, to change your mindset and your outlook. Second thing is that it sounds like you engaged in some kind of mental health treatment, which is very, very important. I won't ask you to clarify that because, you know, you don't have to if you don't want to, but that's really important. The other thing that I don't want to undersell is it sounds like you spent a lot of time like outdoors in national parks.
Yes, and I've continued to do that, which is great. I just got back from some of the Utah national parks a couple of weeks ago, so that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, so I think spending time sort of outside four walls, you know, in nature and things like that is very, very good for your health. And then the last thing that I think is arguably the most important thing that you've done is it sounds like you spent a lot of time truly reflecting on your thought process and like really trying to realize or understand particular things about you.
Definitely. Before I really realized that what was happening to me were panic attacks, the only thing I could really figure out to kind of calm myself down was going for some majorly long walks. So I'd be out for like 3 or more hours sometimes because I was holding a lot of that panic attack stress like in my body. That really helped because sometimes it was like an hour and a half to get the stress out. And then I could kind of enjoy the other hour and a half of like a 3-hour walk.
Cool.
But I was able to reflect during those times.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I'm so happy to hear that. It sounds like you're doing pretty well, dude. And it sounds like that has come as a consequence of sort of like action after action after action after action.
Yeah, now I really am. And it's kind of interesting. I discovered some of this stuff before I really discovered Healthy Gamer. But then I'd hear you either talk about stuff on stream or in the YouTube videos, and it was very interesting to kind of hear things I'd kind of discovered on my own that you would echo.
Fantastic. Well, that's what we're here for. So welcome. Thanks for showing up today. Thanks for sharing your story. Any kind of thoughts or questions? I really appreciated you sort of sharing how you got to where you are, but is there something else you wanted to talk about or any questions you had?
No, other than I kind of wanted to thank you. I definitely noticed even during the pandemic when I was working on my mental health, I definitely kind of retreated into myself again. I generally feel like I've been a very shy person for most of my life. And it was nice when you've had talks about like either meeting friends or meeting people in relationships. So I think that has been really, I've appreciated that a lot because then I've tried to apply it to my own life. And it was like when I got serious about that earlier this year, it was very nice to be out around people kind of starting in January, February. And I met somebody and things are going great for me based on not exclusively what you said, but what you said has definitely helped. So.
Yeah, awesome. I'm so happy to hear that, Tessie. So it sounds like some of the nuts and bolts communication and relationship stuff was somewhat helpful. But what I'm really hearing is that you're doing this work on your own, and we're sort of adding a little bit of, you know, a little bit of kick or a little bit of support to what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Fantastic, Tessie. That's great.
But other than that, thank you for having me on today, and thank you for what you're doing. I think you're helping a lot of people.
Bro, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your perspective.
Well, it's been an honor. Thank you.
Take care, man. Tessie found himself a relationship, chat. Seriously, that dude like put together his life. So I think this is where like not to be underestimated, but you know, I think if we had talked to him maybe 2 years ago, like it would have been a very different conversation. And it's kind of interesting to have first Leia and then Tessie, which I think is almost like a before after kind of thing. That is possible. You know, even Tessie was sort of saying in the present, when we're suffering, we're not able to see an end. But the truth of the matter is that life tends to be like fluctuant. That's the nature of life, and that's the nature of the mind. This is really important to understand. The nature of the mind is not permanence, okay? So if we like think about it, the best example that I tend to come up with is how long does the happiness from the perfect wedding last. Because everyone is so caught up about having the perfect wedding, the perfect wedding, the perfect wedding, or even the perfect birthday or the perfect this or the perfect that. And the nature of happiness, unfortunately, is that it doesn't last a lifetime. And so we spend so much of our stress, so much of our energy on something that fundamentally the mind is going to be fluctuant. It changes. So then the question kind of becomes, okay, if my mind is fluctuant and changing, why do I feel hopeless on a daily basis? Right? Haha, Dr. K, but I feel hopeless on a daily basis. And if you say that the mind fluctuates and changes, that's the nature of the mind, like why am I hopeless every single day? Well, that's because the mind is influenced by what is around it. So if you're in a toxic environment where every day you go to work and your boss is abusive, what it's sort of doing is pumping up your hopelessness on a daily basis. If you're in a toxic relationship, that's going to be pumping up your hopelessness on a daily basis. And through different kinds of influences like changing our job or even going for a 3-hour walk, spending some time outdoors in a national park, we can alter the state of our mind. So even if you think about the perfect wedding, hopefully the perfect wedding makes you perfectly happy for one day. And where is that happiness coming from? It's coming from the events of the wedding. And so if we want to be happy in life, there are a couple of important things to consider. The first is that no amount of happiness is something that we can hold on to. And it's in trying to hold on to happiness that we oftentimes create the biggest problems. Instead, if you want to be happy on a daily basis, what you have to do is cultivate a life that sends you happiness. So try to really change. You may think, okay, this job is awful, but it'll be awful no matter where I work. That's the kind of wrong thinking. Because then what you're doing is sustaining a negative source. So by alterations that can feel in the moment like they're insufficient, by changing those things a little bit at a time, by going for a walk, like literally, like Tessie was doing like 5 things, right? He realized that the present won't last forever. Huge realization. Going for a 3-hour walk, spending time at national parks, actually changing his job, getting mental health treatment, removing himself from the situation of toxicity, which it didn't sound like it was easy. It sounded like it took him months. But a couple years later, the dude is happy. And then all the while, he kept on working on communication skills and stuff like that. And he met someone, and then everything sort of clicked, right? And so very important to remember that the mind fluctuates. And if your mind is in the same space day after day after day, what you need to think about is not that it's there that way forever, which it feels that way, right? But that's because you're sustaining something. It's sort of like, if I have a leaky pipe and things are, my house is flooding, like the source of that flooding is the leaky pipe. And until I fix that, it's going to stay flooded. But it's not like it's going to stay flooded forever. All I need to do is fix the pipe. Great so far. Let's see who we've got next. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good, my friend. How are you?
I am doing okay.
Okay. And what do you go by?
Chamomile.
Chamomile. Okay. So chamomile, can you tell us a little bit about how you're feeling today?
Yeah, I feel like I'm never gonna make it. Oftentimes, I find that due to an intense attachment to my goal of overcoming this crippling social anxiety and shame of feeling behind. When I fail or experience a minor setback, my mind quickly gets overwhelmed by emotion, and it spirals out of control really quickly with thoughts of I'm doomed, it's insurmountable, I'm too late, or if only you didn't do XYZ in the past, you wouldn't be here, you aren't capable. So I kind of feel like I'll never really get there. I've been chasing this goal for like 7 years, but I don't feel like I made any meaningful progress because every time I literally do anything, I end up getting overwhelmed by this stuff.
Okay, so that was a lot. Thank you very much for sharing it. And is it okay if I ask you to kind of pull it apart a little bit?
Yeah, by pull it apart, do you mean to summarize a bit further?
Well, so let me start with this. So when you say I'm never going to make it, what do you mean by make it? What does make it mean?
Yeah, so when I say make it, I have this vision of becoming this person who can function to a particular degree in a social setting to be to experience a level of comfort. I've had this feeling a couple of times. I know what like my quote unquote peaks look like, and I know what it feels like to feel comfortable in my own skin. But it's extraordinarily rare that that happens.
Okay.
So making it looks like that.
So making it means being comfortable in your own skin in a social situation.
Yeah.
And are there other dimensions of your life that you feel like you haven't made it, or we're sort of specifically talking about being comfortable in your own skin in a social situation?
There are other dimensions in my life also, but I think this is the primary one that I concern myself with.
Okay. And what happens when you so then you started talking a lot about your thought process when you're in these situations, like you're doomed and stuff like that. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been working on this for 7 years. I've tried a myriad of different techniques, processes, protocols, courses, all this kind of cool stuff. But I feel like in spite of all the investment I've made, all my apparent knowledge regarding socializing communication skills, I haven't really improved. So it feels like you've put in all this effort, you've done all this shit, and I'm sorry, can I cuss on stream?
Sure.
Sorry about that.
I'm trying to cut back, but it's
Me too. I feel you. But yeah, I was saying that it feels like you've done all this stuff. You're not making any forward progress, and you start wondering like, is this really meant for me? Is there something wrong with me biologically? Are my psychological scars too deep to heal?
okay. So what I'm almost hearing is that the more effort you put in, it can have a paradoxical effect of making you more and more hopeless. Because if you so there's like stuff you can do to improve your situation, right? And
Yeah.
if you do that stuff and it doesn't work, and that's what's supposed to work, then it must mean that something is so fundamentally broken that even the cure cannot treat you.
Yes.
Okay.
Especially when you've tried so many different cures.
Yep. I can totally understand that. It's something that I've seen a lot in terms of people like, yeah. Okay. So tell me, can you just run through a little bit of like what you've tried?
Sure. So there was basic exposure therapy. I worked under a communication skills coach for many years. I've also tried, stuff like diet, exercise, dealing with the other healthy habits of your life. I've tried 5 therapists, including 1 psychologist, various modalities, including internal family systems, classic CBT, focusing, somatic experiencing, stuff like that.
Wow.
And then finally,
You really
I
tried a
started
lot of stuff,
exploring-
dude.
A lot. Last thing I want to say is I tried this thing called TMI, the Mind Illuminated, where because I started thinking I was like, oh yeah, this is like a spiritual problem too. So I was like Samantha Vipassana meditation for like an hour a day for like a couple months, trying to sublimate the ego, following the Noble Eightfold Path, egolessness, non-duality.
Damn,
et cetera, et
son, you
cetera.
really have tried everything under the sun, haven't you? You weren't kidding.
I think so. Maybe there's something I haven't found yet. This is why I'm here, Dr. K. Save me.
Okay. You really want to be saved?
I don't know anymore. I don't know.
Okay. To help me understand that.
Sometimes I feel like I'm still making efforts. I'm still grasping at this, but I truly wonder, given how I think, I mean, to my degree of knowledge, that I've tried everything under the sun, I wonder if it's like all this trying is meaningless. I mean,
So-
you try since like you're a kid and you're still in the same place.
Okay.
You still have difficulty like making friends, building, fostering relationships are meaningful to you that you have fun with. And it's like, are you ever going to get there?
Okay. So I'll ask you again. Do you even want to be saved?
Yeah, I do.
You sure about that?
Yeah.
Do you think you can be saved?
Part of me says yes, part of me says no.
Talk to me about the part that tell me about the part that says yes.
The part that says yes has seen glimpses of my quote unquote potential and how good it feels and how it's possible for me to function the way I want to under the right circumstances. I'm not sure what those circumstances are. I haven't broken down to the component parts that well, in my own opinion. But I know it exists. I know that state exists. And the part of me that says no is the part that knows that it's tried so many different things. There's so much failure, there's so much history. Feels like nothing works.
And when was the part of you that says nothing works? When was that born? How old is it?
About 3, 4 years old when I started trying really intense exposure therapy.
Okay.
I think it was strengthened most recently about a year ago.
Okay. Any chance that it's actually older than that?
I haven't thought about that.
Okay. So here's
Potentially.
a couple things to consider, Chamomile. The first is that if there's a part of you that believes that this can't work and you try something, what do you think is the efficacy of what you try?
It's ultimately restrained because you're putting half a foot in the water.
So this is where, like, have you heard of something called the placebo effect?
Yeah.
Have you heard of something called the nocebo effect?
Yes.
So you could be engaging in some nocebo effect kind of stuff with all this different sorts of therapy. So I've seen this before, where sometimes people will come to me, they'll be like, Dr. K, I've seen 15 psychiatrists. None of them help. So I came to see you because you're the one that helps. Maybe you can fix me. And then that's where I'm like, all right, this is screwed. And then I'll sort of tell them, yeah, I'm not so sure that I can help you. Because if they come in with this idea that psychiatry doesn't help, right? Like if that thought is there, that thought has a deterministic aspect. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So interestingly enough, you can't help them, but you just have to start with getting rid of the expectation that like this 16th psychiatrist will be able to help me. So we'll get, does that make sense?
Kind of, yeah.
So
You're saying I shouldn't attach myself to an expectation that a therapist could help?
Oddly enough, yes. So that just what your mind brings to the table. Because then the other thing to think a little bit about is that, in a sense, like if you see 5 different therapists and none of them are able to help you, that's the kind of thing where like you may be targeting the wrong thing, right? So like either you're so broken, but I don't think it's that you're fundamentally broken. My sense is that you're probably like missing something that's kind of crucial. And the other thing that, can I just share like another sort of experience that I've had with people?
Please.
So sometimes I work with people who are like, want to spiritually grow. Okay. So what they do is they go to like retreat after retreat after retreat. They'll go study in Nepal. They'll go here. They'll go there. They're like working on themselves very, very hard. They'll go on these, like they'll learn this technique and that technique and whatever to like try to find happiness and to like let go of suffering and stuff like that. But fundamentally what they're doing is like outsourcing the work. So they go to a place and they're like, okay, if I do this 1 month intensive silent retreat, I will be fixed by the end of it. So they go to the retreat with sort of the idea of like, okay, I just have to check these boxes. I have to make it through this 1 month of the retreat and I will be fixed at the end. The challenge is no matter how many retreats they go to, none of them fix them. What do you think about that?
Can I think for a second?
Yeah.
Do you mean to say that as opposed to targeting the core issue, you're outsourcing portions of it to different tasks so that you never really have to confront the primary problem?
Sort of. I wouldn't quite use that phrasing, but I think you're in the right direction.
Gotcha. So what would you do in the case if I told you that, I mean, I tried to tackle it, right? I tried to do a lot of exposure therapy, going to like improv classes, approaching strangers, like, asking for the time, all that kind of stuff. And I tackle that head on, and I'm still flooded by all these emotions. The reason I started outsourcing to things like meditation, dieting, trying to optimize like biochemical stuff, quote unquote biochemical stuff, is because I thought that I was so dysregulated that was the only way I could like get back on the path of exposure.
Yep. So let me ask you something, Chamomile. So You've tried to tackle it through therapy. You've tried to tackle it through diet. You've tried to tackle it through meditation. What's the common element?
Nothing works.
Tackling doesn't work. What do you think about that?
When you say tackling, do you mean coming at it with an aggressive approach?
What do you mean when you use the word tackle?
When I say tackle, I mean trying my best to improve those aspects of my life
Okay.
and trying my best to feel like it's at a place that is beneficial.
Okay. Would you call that aggressive?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I think I got to a place where I was just like, hey, you just like try your best, just meditate like 20 minutes a day when you can. If you're too tired, it's okay. Try your best to like make better dietary decisions on a daily basis. It's okay if you fail here and there. It's a process.
Yeah. So it sounds like you also are trying your best to be kind to yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're also trying to tackle being kind to yourself.
Yeah. I'm trying to learn to be more compassionate in my dialogue.
So hold on a second. Can I think for a second, Chamomile?
Please.
What would it mean to you if none of this stuff does work?
I guess I'm out of options.
And then what?
I have to accept where I currently am and accept a life without the meaningful relationships I'm seeking, without having, a social circle that I want.
And then what? What happens to your social interactions after that?
They don't exist
Why not?
because I can't drag myself out the house. I don't. I guess I don't really feel like, because I guess the feeling of feeling like all my social interactions are like bad because of like past trauma or whatever you want to call it is still there. Like you don't naturally motivate yourself to do anything, so you just stay in your room playing games that you don't really care about.
So, Kim, I think your situation is incredibly, incredibly difficult. Arguably, like, in a sense, the hardest situation that I've seen. So you have something going on that I think is very difficult to deal with, but I do believe it can be dealt with. So let me kind of, how do you feel about that?
It feels it's difficult to hear that, given your pedigree and expertise. But I'm curious as to what you have to say next.
Okay. What's difficult to hear about that?
I already feel like the situation in a vacuum is difficult in the vacuum of my own life, but to hear it comparatively being assessed to everything you've ever dealt with is it's scary,
It is scary. What does that mean for you?
To put it as simply as I can, like, is there more to deal with than I thought? Is it worse than I really thought?
I don't think so. So because it sounds like you think it's pretty bad. So here's the basic issue. So, hold on. Let me. I'm wondering if I actually want to. Okay, let me try to. Give me a second, okay?
All right.
Okay. So, Chamomile, I think the challenge here is that, in a sense, you're trying too hard. Okay? So this is going to be kind of tricky because the first thing that, actually, before I even say that, I'm going to start by saying I don't know that what I'm going to say. I have a pretty good instinct here, but I very well could be very wrong. Can we start with that disclaimer?
Yeah.
So here's the challenge. Every time, so you're unmotivated because you're paralyzed by the social anxiety, right? So to overcome that motivation, what do you have to do? How do you overcome the paralysis of being like having crippling social anxiety and feeling like, oh my God, I'm broken and this is never going to work? How do you get out of that?
I think you have to first accept it.
I'm asking you, how do you get out of that? Like, because you go out and you do stuff, right? You've tried 5 different therapists. You've tried social coaching stuff. You've tried this. You've tried that. Where do you get the motivation to like not sit at home and play video games all day?
I'm feeling like I have to do something about this.
Right. So it's like desperation, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Desperation. And then there's also like this expectation that you have in your mind where it's like, this is the future that I could have. But in order to get to that future, you have to like whip yourself out of the house. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So when you whip yourself and you're kind of like, there's a bunch of tension in your mind. Like you're not like, the mind is in a very high energy state because you've got to try, you've got to try, you've got to try. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So the tricky thing is that when your mind is in a high energy state, that feeds the anxiety. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's like the way you're setting up all of your attempts is actually, I think, what's like kind of shooting yourself in the foot. Now, the real problem with that is that if I tell you that you're doing it wrong, that is actually going to strengthen the whole complex because the whole idea is that like you're doing it wrong and something is fundamentally broken. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like the tricky thing, the tricky problem that I have is how to tell you you're doing it wrong without reinforcing the idea that you're doing it wrong. Because if I tell you you're doing it wrong, you're going to try harder to fix it, and then the whole cycle is going to repeat. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So this is tricky because I do think that there's 2 options, right? One is that you're fundamentally broken and like there's nothing you can do to fix it. The second is that there is actually something that can be done. And when you've tried as hard as you have, and you've tried so many different things, I think it's like, it's something you're bringing to the table. And this is where there's a very subtle, important point here is that just because you're bringing something to the table does not mean that you're fundamentally broken and it can't be fixed. That's where I think you and I disagree or diverge a little bit. Because I think, in fact, actually, there's just one thing you need to change, and then if you change that thing, a lot of stuff in your life will change. The problem is that if I tell you that, then you're going to try really, really, really hard to change it, and it's actually just going to reinforce the whole cycle.
Right. I'm going to effort non-efforting.
What?
I'm going to place a lot of effort in trying to not.
Exactly. Beautifully put.
Effort.
Beautifully put, right? Yeah, so it's tough. Like, it's really tough. So, like, now, like, the problem is that the more I tell you you're doing something wrong and this is the right way to do it, the more we're actually going to fall into the trap that is keeping you stuck.
Yeah, because as soon as you told me that, my mind was immediately like, oh, like you need to get more into Zen and Taoism now.
Exactly. Beautiful. So I know I can hear you smiling, Chamomile. Are you smiling?
Yes, because I feel like you get it.
Right?
Nice.
So you just took a step forward. Do you know how you took a step forward? What did you do? Did you fix something?
I accepted. No, I accepted that.
Not even that far. You didn't go that far. What you did is notice it. You caught it in your mind.
Right, yeah.
Does that make sense? You're like, oh, there it is.
Yes.
Oh, I should do Zen and I should study Tao. Right? You caught that part of your mind that's saying, Chamomile, you're not good enough. Try harder. Try this other thing. It'll fix you. Do you see that thing?
Yeah.
And then the moment you notice it, you don't have to fix it. You don't have to change it. You don't even have to accept it. All that crap that you should do, you don't have to do any of that crap. All you have to do is notice it.
Okay. This is really tricky because I feel like you're right. It's like the way you approach it is going to determine what happens from here on out. And I can already feel like, again, the effort coming through, thinking about planning ahead about how I'll approach this for the next like couple of weeks, right?
Right? And so now are you thinking to yourself, okay, how am I going to notice it perfectly? How do I notice it better? Is that what you're thinking?
I mean, that's a part of it. Another part of it is like, okay, so if I learn to just accept that I overexert effort and I have to let go of the flagellating drive to try all this stuff.
It's still screwed, bro. Because it started with the statement, if I learn. That if I learn is the complex. Do you see that?
Yeah.
It's like I'm more hopeful for you now because I think you're appreciating how tricky it is. It's like, it's slippery, dude. It's not that it's not unfixable. It's not that you can go to a therapist that'll just fix it for you. It's like a slippery mofo. But the cool thing is that if you catch it, okay, it's kind of tricky because it's sort of like, I don't know how to... So there's a meditation that I think you should do, but it's like, it's tricky. So there's a meditation where, have you done meditation with us before?
A couple times.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a particular meditation that is a Trataka meditation on a yantra that I think you should do. And the goal of this meditation is you look at this diagram for an extended period of time without blinking, and then you close your eyes. And when you close your eyes, you'll see an after image of that thing. Okay? The tricky thing is that if you look too hard for it with your eyes closed, it'll disappear. But if you let your mind relax too much, you'll start thinking about other stuff. It's a really weird meditation because there's this like certain level of concentration, which is if you try too hard, it'll shatter. It's like trying to hold water in your hands. Where if you try really hard, you can't hold the water. But if you like AFK too much, like it's gonna just slip away. So this is the skill that you need to learn with your mind. And this, once again, is falling into the trap again. Because as I give you a direction to go, you're like, okay, if I just do this thing, then it'll work. What you need to actually abandon is that like this thing will work. Because this thing will work, will keep you focused on the future, will create an expectation of your mind. And as you chase that expectation, what you're inevitably going to end up with is disappointment. And the more that you end up with disappointment, the more that you'll create this fantasy in your mind and you'll chase an even more impossible expectation. And that expectation is actually like, I know, let me know if I'm losing you, but that expectation is kind of the opposite of the despair that you feel. So it's like when you have instead of having a neutron, you're creating like a positron, positron and an electron. And so the more that you expect, the more that you expect, the more that you expect, the more that you hope, the more broken you feel. And both of those things have to go away.
Right. It has to be like a middle path.
Not a middle path, a non-path, which is weird.
Yeah. Oh, so you're saying that I shouldn't do things for the sake of anything. I should just do it?
Exactly. Now,
that's really tricky to wrestle with for me.
100%, right? Because what gets you out the door?
The hope that in the future, that this is a contribution to my future.
Exactly.
Goal.
So your real problem, Chamomile, and once again, once I say your real problem, like we're opening up to the whole damn thing again, is that the only way you found that you can get out the door is by engaging in this complex.
And I don't know any better way.
Yep, not yet. So here's why I have hope for you. The first is that you've come this far and you're clearly very hardworking. The only problem is that all of the machinery and energy of your mind has been hijacked by this thing. So like every time you go to a social interaction, you have this burden in your mind of like, if I don't do this right, I won't have this beautiful social life. And you carry that burden with you to all of these things. And it's the burden itself that's weighing you down. So it's kind of weird, but like what I want you to do is have a social interaction with no goal. Like your mind is going to like, and notice all of the things that your mind is like, but then what's the point of that? Or it's not working, but I want it so bad. Right? Because like, you're right that acceptance is what you need. But like the interesting thing is that if you accept, like if you let go of all this expectation, like you'll be free. Because the one thing you aren't right now, Camwile, is free. There's no freedom. There's just pressure and hard work and motivation and dedication and flagellation. You know, you're just like, and like there's wanting and hoping and needing and expectation and like all this crap. Like, dude, it feels so heavy what you're carrying around. Does it feel heavy?
Yeah, every day. I wake up with palpitations in the morning.
And so like put it down, bro. Right? What is it like? What does your mind say if I like forget about building this perfect life, which you've found? There are these bright moments, right, where the stars align and you are the person that you know you can be. What would it be like to set down that expectation?
My logical mind tells me that it'd be freeing, but
Good.
another part of me tells me that it's like you need to, otherwise you're going to be stuck where you are, and where
Exactly.
you are isn't good.
Yep. You understand? So here's the thing. You're afraid to put it down. You're afraid of what it means for your life if you put this thing down. And now we have to be kind of careful. Because if you're afraid to put it down, Chamomile, what should you do?
I should let myself be afraid.
Good! You actually got the right answer. What the fuck? I thought you were going to say I have to conquer my fear. Right? So like this is the thing. In order to put it down, you've got to put it, like you've got to live with that fear. It's going to be with you all the time because it's with you already. Like, so like the fear of like, does that make sense? Like you have to let go of your expectations and then what you're going to be left with is the fear, but the fear is always there. That's why you hold on to the expectations. Does that make sense? Now you're holding two things. You've got both of your hands full. One is with the fear of being alone forever.
I can still keep the fear.
Yes. Keep the fear.
I don't have to summon it. It's already there.
Exactly. But
it.
Put one hand down and then you can deal with the fear. Like it'll be there. Right? Like, okay, so like if I go and, talk to someone in a park and it doesn't work out, that means I'll be alone forever. So be it. But like in this moment, it's not about building the future. It's about recognizing that I feel lonely in this moment and I'm afraid of being alone forever. So what I'm going to do is just engage with another human being and see if in some way it helps this feeling of loneliness.
Yeah, I get it. I also had a thought because when this all was triggered last Saturday, what I did immediately was I retreated into my room and I was like, oh, like what can be done about like this feeling? And then I started thinking about like all this other stuff about like diet and exercise again. But instead, maybe what I should have done is just sat with the feeling.
Yeah, so that's correct. And also you got to be super careful because you're still trying to, you got to be careful that your mind is not latching on to sitting with the feeling is fixing the feeling. Does that make sense? Because you're like, you
Yes.
tried to fix it through diet and exercise, and now your mind is like, haha, I can fix the
Now it's
feeling by
telling me
sitting
to-
with it.
Yeah,
Haha.
Now it's telling me to fix that. I have to meditate on the Tratak. you called it.
Yeah, like, so then I have to do this, and I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this. And as long as you're doing something, Chamomile, you're not accepting yourself. And this is at the root of all of the crap.
Do you think I should just do nothing for a while?
What do you think?
I don't know. Maybe I should try it. See
So
what happens.
that too could be, okay, like doing nothing for a while is the way I'm going to fix it. Haha, I figured it out.
It's such a mind fuck, right?
Yes. So now you're getting it. This is what you need to do. Because everything you try, it's there, subverting it. You're like a puppet and it's pulling your strings. And no matter what you do, you're still being pulled by this thing. And that's why none of it is working.
Yeah, I understand.
So you've made 2 points of progress. When you use the phrase mindfuck, you're getting it now. Because the first thing that you need to do is like see it. See what it's doing to you. And the more that you become aware of its action on you, the more you can start to like, I don't even want to say control it, but it'll start to melt. Like that's the best term. But then you've got to be careful because if I tell you this is how you melt it, you're going to try. And if you try, it's not going to work. You just have to notice it. It's sort of like, yeah, like I want you to be just sort of like observing, right? So like get a pair of binoculars and just watch it. Just watch it. Just watch it without expectation. Just understand, Chamomile, forget about social stuff. Forget about all that crap. You are a human being. You exist. You are a consciousness. Try to see how you work. What are the rules of the game? Learn. Don't try to fix.
I see.
How are you feeling right now?
I feel really good. I'm honestly very overwhelmed by everything you've been telling me. But I'm very hopeful.
Okay, good.
But I'm also watching the hopefulness.
There you
I
go.
know it's
Big,
gonna
3 for
transform.
3 today, Chamomile.
I know.
You see it? Because it's like, oh, I'm hopeful. Oh, yeah, because now all your dreams can be true, Chamomile. Oh, my God, this is the answer that you've been waiting for. And if you give in to that, you're fucked, bro.
It's just another thing for it to latch onto, yeah.
Right? So this is the tricky thing. Like, hope cannot become expectation.
Hope is in the present, expectations in the future, right?
100%. Right? And this is where all the crap, all of the effort that you put in is not wasted. Because you know a lot of these answers. It's just they're always like controlled by that frickin' puppet. I mean, by the puppet master. And so everything that you've put in one day, I can't say shit like this because it'll create your expectation. I'm hopeful for you because I do genuinely think I'm starting to see this now, even though I can't see you, but it'll click, Chamomile. It'll click. Just be patient with yourself and like, just like focus on today.
Yeah, I will.
It ain't going to be easy. But I'm hopeful for you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good luck.
Thanks a lot, Doctor.
Take care, man.
You too.
It's tricky, dude. This is the thing that like oftentimes we don't realize is like what we're bringing to the table is what's screwing us. It's like we're serving up shit pie and then we're complaining about the food. But it's like it's what we're bringing to the table. And this is what feels so paralyzing and makes us feel so broken because every single day I'm baking myself a shit pie and then I serve it on and it's like, I am tired of eating shit pie. Like this is hopeless. But we're so blind to parts of ourselves. And this is what's happening in our society. The more that we get distracted by Reddit and YouTube and video games and stuff like that, we stop noticing. We're great at learning. We're great at reading and watching and playing, but noticing. As society has removed boredom from our life, we have gotten rid of the most basic way that we learn how to notice. Because when can you notice? When you're not doing anything. And so the destruction of boredom in our society has had such a catastrophic impact on our awareness. What is the one thing that all human beings hate right now more than anything else is boredom. I saw this great Twitter post about someone who's on a flight, and the person next to them, they put it was raw dogging a 12-hour flight. They showed up on the plane with nothing to do. No electronics, no book, nothing. They just showed up on the plane with nothing to do for a 12-hour flight. And they're like, who is this crazy motherfucker? So think about it for a second, right? So you're not doing anything for 12 hours on a flight. Like, what's the harm? You're alive for 40 more years. Like, what difference does it make whether you're on your phone or you watch 6 episodes of a show and play like 2 hours of like whatever on your Nintendo Switch? Yeah, Cedal is saying so much for not swearing. Yeah, it feels like the floodgates have opened. Right? So it's tough. It's tough. Anyway, let's see what we've got. We've probably got time for maybe one more.
Oh, we don't need... Oh,
Hello.
hi.
What do you go by, friend?
Yeah, my name's Nick. You can call me Nick.
Nick. Pleasure to meet you, Nick.
Yeah, you as well.
How are you feeling today, Nick?
I'm feeling great. My life kind of feels like a stream that's dam has been opened. And still a few rocks left there, but I'm flowing in the right direction.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. I've been struggling a lot throughout the past year or two. A lot of mental health stuff, in and out of therapy. But I'm starting to feel like my puzzle pieces are coming together slowly.
Yeah, so I'd love to hear what do you think opened up the dam?
Honestly, a lot of introspection. I kept thinking that problems were on the outside rather than being on the inside.
Can you give us an example of that?
Yeah. I kept thinking that, so I kept skipping between jobs because I would always get super burned out of these jobs, and I would always think, oh, these jobs suck. Every job I work sucks. I'm never going to find a job that I like. But I started to think maybe it's me.
And how did you start to think that?
Well, if every job sucks, I'm sort of the common denominator there, aren't I?
Well, or all jobs suck.
True. That wouldn't be too fun, but yeah, it could be an option.
And what did you discover through that process of introspection? What did you discover about yourself that, what were you bringing with you to each of these jobs?
I was it basically came down to the fact that I always rush myself.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. I kept doing work at an absurd pace, and it wasn't work burning me out. I was burning myself out. If that makes any sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. That's very common. So do you have a sense of what it was that was causing you to rush yourself?
I think it has to do with how much the cost of things keep increasing, the expectation that you've got to climb that ladder the second you hang on to it. And everyone's got to be the office star. And if you're not, then you're going to get passed on.
Yeah. I mean, so how did you start to get, because Nick, it makes perfect sense when you say it, but what I'm really struggling to understand is that, noticing that or realizing that is such a big, hard step for so many people. How did that happen for you?
Well, so interestingly enough, you had introduced me to the idea of the doshas.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw what a kapha was, I realized I am rushing myself in ways that I don't think I'm equipped for. And if I sit back and slow it down a bit, I can catch my pace a bit more.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, you're a kapha trying to live a pitta's life?
Yes.
Yeah,
And that's why, yeah, I've been, and I had some issues with coffee and stuff because I had to keep myself going. And yeah.
Okay, everything just made sense for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, that's classic, man.
Right?
It's so I'm so happy for you. Oh my god.
Yeah.
So how are you doing with work and stuff now?
I've slowed down things. I get my tasks done slower, but quality is increased exponentially.
Okay. So
yeah.
Perfect. So Nick, can you explain to us what kapha is and what resonated with you and how you decided to change it? So let's start, because people don't know what that is.
Right. So from what I can recall off the top of my head, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, kapha is the earth water dosha.
Yep.
And their style of motivation is sort of a slow roll, where you're almost like a rock rolling down a hill and you have to gain your momentum over time.
Yeah. So just to give a little bit of context. So generally speaking, if we look at Western science assumes all human beings are basically the same. So if we think about even our model of disease, so we'll think about, a particular disease as being a discrete entity that exists outside of a person or a pathophysiologic process. So we know, for example, that that's how we sort of think about our model of disease, but we know that, for example, from 5-factor research, that personality is individual. So we've even sort of classified individuality in some ways. So one of the things that's kind of interesting is if we look at a lot of psychology, we don't have we have psychology of personality, but we don't look at personality as being a fundamental part of many of our psychological principles. So for example, we don't think about depression as manifesting differently in people of a particular personality type versus another personality type. Actually, our disease model and our personality model are completely separate, right? No one says, anyway, so if that sort of makes sense. And so one of the key things about the Ayurvedic system is that they don't separate disease from the person. So there's no way to have a disease without some kind of person involved. What that sort of results in is that the idea of disease and health is much more of an individual oriented process as opposed to a classification that applies to 1,000 people. Mm-hmm. So one of the key principles of Ayurveda is that there are 3 basically forces within our body that they sort of use elements to kind of describe aspects of these, essentially personalities is what you can call them. And the interesting thing about this stuff is that, these are all sort of heuristics, which means that they're tools for understanding, but there isn't really a whole lot of scientific evidence that this is actually exists. So there's not you can't biopsy someone, a kapha, and find earth and water inside them. The key thing, though, is that what I've really found is that, so some of the treatments of Ayurveda have been sort of scientifically verified, but the core principles, there's we used to say that there was very strong genetic evidence, actually based on criticism from our community and a thorough literature review. That evidence exists, but it's actually very preliminary, and the effect size is quite small. So these are preliminary data that show some indication that there's a genetic component to this stuff, but it's far from conclusive. That being said, what we tend to find is when we talk to people like Nick, that there are a lot of people for whom this system of understanding can be transformative in terms of like how to understand yourself. And essentially what we talked about is that there are, depending on what your primary dosha is, you have a particular like motivational style. And so Nick is a earth water type. So much like an earth water Pokemon, he's kind of like tanky and he's resilient, but it takes him some time to get started. And oftentimes if you try to like push yourself too far, you can kind of burn yourself out. And generally speaking, most of what we think of as being successful is like the fire type, which is like driven, ambitious. Like we think of ambition as a flatly good thing. We don't realize that you don't have to be that ambitious to be very successful professionally. Like it's not necessarily that you need to be ambitious. You could just care a lot about what you do. That's not necessarily ambition. So there are a lot of these assumptions that we make about what it takes to be professionally successful. But the key thing about this Ayurvedic motivational style perspective is that if you understand yourself, you can start to adjust to your individual personality. And then hopefully, if you're like Nick, you'll stop burning yourself out and start to feel like happier at work. Did that make sense, Nick? What do you think?
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfectly.
So you said you started to slow down a little bit.
Yep.
Were you afraid that wouldn't work?
Yeah. At first, because that's a risk,
Can you tell us about that experience of slowing down?
Yeah, I have to constantly remind myself to not rush myself because it's almost second nature to try to keep up, as it were. And it's tough to struggle to slow down in a world that keeps wanting us to go faster and faster as things change. As expectations increase, it seems.
Yeah, so I don't know how else to say this, Nick, but how do you do that? Because aren't you like paranoid that if you don't speed up, you're gonna be left behind?
Well, I don't really think that I can be left behind necessarily. I just feel like at first I thought that I would fall behind on my work if I slowed down, but I realized that this quota was not something given to me. It was something I was giving myself. It might be a little different if you actually have a work quota.
Yeah.
Being thrown at you.
I think it's interesting how much people take on responsibilities at work that are actually not assigned to them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something I learned. That I was all this big work that was getting thrown at me that was burning me out was me. That was me doing that.
Yeah, so we see this a lot. We recently launched a career coaching program. And one of the key parts of our career coaching program, so a lot of people think it's just like, okay, how do I get promoted? But a big part of our program is that we focus on like the individual. So what are a lot of the expectations that you're putting on yourself? Or how does your ego manifest at work in terms of signing up for things, wanting credit, feeling like other people outshine you? And so if you feel like someone is outshining you at work, you'll work harder to get credit. But there's a difference between feeling like other people outshine you and people actually outshining you. Right. And so there's that individual component that I think a lot of people sort of lose in terms of like career advice. We sort of assume that what our mind produces in terms of assessing a work situation is accurate, which is a huge problem.
Yeah. Yeah, my brain was not being accurate with me. That's for sure.
Yeah. So how did you learn how to slow down?
Well, and this kind of came to me both through self-introspection and therapy, but realizing that these quotas were on myself, I had to take that leap where, okay, well, what if I didn't move so quick? What if instead of multitasking, I focused on one thing at a time? And it took it took some time for me to accept that it was okay, but also being open with your coworkers, your supervisor, that you work at a different pace, was something that I did with great success.
Hmm.
Just letting people know that, hey, I do really good work, but I have to take my pace.
Awesome. So that sounds like something that a lot of people would have trouble doing, is letting your supervisor know, hey, I have, this is sort of how I work the best, and notifying
Yeah.
people of that. So it sounds like you're doing great, Nick.
Yeah, I like to think so.
That's awesome, dude. Thank you so much for calling in and stuff. Anything that you want to talk about in particular, or any questions you have?
I guess just how to be a positive light with others that are having a good time without being, I guess the word they use is toxic positivity.
Help me understand.
Because
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, so I like to think of myself as a positive guy. When I'm with people, I'm always the optimist, but I don't want to come off as undermining their issues, because some people take that positivity as saying that their concerns aren't real.
Mhm.
Or it kind of, when people say, if I say something positive and they're like, oh, thanks, bud, I'm cured. You cured my depression with your words, and they kind of take it as an affront.
Yeah, and what kind of stuff would you say?
I kind of would just be there for them and say, hey, that really sucks, but things can be temporary.
Okay. So
I got, as an example off the top of my head.
yeah, great. So that may not be, I recognize that was potentially an artificial example. So I'm going to give you one very practical tip, Nick, and then
Okay.
one more global tip, which I think is more aligned with where you are. So the first is,
All
if
right.
I say, yeah, it sucks, but things are temporary, what is the meaning of the word but in that sentence?
Like it's kind of downplaying in a way.
Yeah. Nick, I think you're a great guy, but
Yeah.
but I think you're not,
Yeah. Okay.
So
I
the
see it.
first is, I'd eliminate but from your vocabulary when you're
No
trying to
buts.
be empathetic. It's like one of the best tips I can give you. So literally, when we train to become therapists, we remove the word but from our vocabulary. Like, I almost never, or I use it very intentionally.
Okay.
So if you're trying to get someone to see the other side of a coin, don't use but, use and.
And okay.
The other thing is that I think you take it for granted how far you've come. And to recognize that a lot of people who are suffering are like not where you are. So kaffas tend to be more they tend to be very understanding and very resilient. And so I think you've just got to realize that, like, this is like, telling a 15-year-old who's never had a girlfriend that they're going to be okay, and the decent chance that they're going to get married and have kids and all that kind of stuff. They're going to get laid one day. They're not ready for it, right? They just don't understand that. Like, they just can't understand that. And so what I'd say in terms of the positivity is, like, lead by example instead of explanation. And that's where, like, don't try to create expectations for them in the future, where, like, they'll come to you, but I would almost be, like, more stable as opposed to, like, pulling them or pushing them in a particular direction. So just slow it down the way that you have it work, right? You don't need to inject them with hope right this second.
I get you.
So just they'll come to you. And so that, like, what'll happen over time, you were sort of saying, like, how do I share my positivity with others without it being toxic? And that's, like, the way is that you, if you want to be a positive person, it's not something you do to other people. It's not like, hey, take my positivity. Hey, positivity. That's when it becomes toxic. Instead, like, if you want to be a light in people's life, like, you just shine in your own way,
Glow.
right? And don't try to, like, point it. Don't be a spotlight. Just be a light bulb and let it be like relatively diffuse. And then they will come to you. They're probably sensing it to begin with, which is why they maybe come to you with their problems. But then just like let them sit in your general vicinity and kind of just, slow it down a little bit.
Moving too fast with wanting to help.
Yep.
Yep.
Right. So I think you're trying to catch them up to what you've learned. I have no doubt that you believe like you're able to see both sides of the situation. Right. But like that's hard for a lot of people. So like just slow it down, which you've already learned.
Yeah.
So lean into that.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Cool, man.
All right. Take it easy.
Take it easy, buddy. You too. I'm really happy that you're doing well. And thank you so much for sharing. I think far too often this community becomes, I don't think we realize because we reach out to the people who sometimes need help that, there are a lot of people in this community who are actually doing really, really well and like benefit from what we do here. And like, they actually just do okay. That's kind of like it,
Yep.
So
I'm hoping to help some gamers become healthy gamers.
That's awesome, dude. And I think you calling in today and just sharing your story and your perspective is a fantastic example of just radiating whatever you are.
Awesome.
Take care, man.
Yeah, you as well.
All right, shall we do one more? Yeah, let's do one more. I've got time for one more. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Can you tell me what you go by, please?
Yeah, Asper's.
Asper?
Asper. Yeah.
Welcome, Asper. How are you feeling today?
Doing fine. I'm a bit nervous, but yeah. So I guess I say what I come here, like, how am I feeling?
Yeah, sure. If you're open to it.
So, this is actually really good timing because just really recently I got a really important like life goal in my life, and I just noticed I'm not really feeling too excited about it. I just kind of boredom more than any other thing.
Okay.
So yeah, that's a bit the thing of how I'm feeling. I'm just a bit disappointed that this would be a high in my life, and it's just nothing's changed really.
I see. So by got a life goal, you mean you achieved a life goal?
Yeah, sorry. So yeah, I just graduated from college.
Okay. And so you climbed to the top of the mountain, the view isn't what you thought it would be.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. You always imagine it's going to be so intense, so great, and then you come here and it's just okay, I'm still just here.
Okay.
Exactly the same as I was the day before.
Okay. So, first of all, congratulations at graduating from college.
Okay, thank you.
I think it is an achievement, but what I'm hearing is that it's not. How are you expecting to feel?
I don't know, because you always feel like we work by like you start something and you say, okay, when I finish primary school, okay, now that's my goal, finish primary school. And then when you finish, you'll go to high school. Okay, let's finish high school. And then when you finish, you go to college. And now I finished college, and now it's like, so now do I retire?
Yeah.
It's just you don't look past that. You just work by frames, and then suddenly this frame was ended, and I thought this would be a high achievement. And it's just, I don't know. Like life's going really smoothly, but feels so pointless.
Yeah. I think, can I just repeat back kind of what I heard, Asper?
Sure.
So we like focus on a goal, right? And the idea is that once we get to the end of the road and we achieve that goal, we will be happy because you work really hard and you sacrifice to get to this goal. And then you finish primary school, and then you finish high school, and then you finish college. But like everything that you've worked for it doesn't like magically, you just don't feel like happy and accomplished all of a sudden, even though you've done exactly what you set out to do. And so now you're kind of like, where is the achievement actually? Like, where does it feel good? How does it feel good?
Yeah, it's like we're just chasing constantly something, and I don't even want it. I just want to chase it, and I don't even know why. Just start to bother Like, do you really want to chase that?
Good. I know it sounds kind of weird, Asper, but I think that's a fantastic way to think and feel. Does that sound?
Thank you.
Does that sound weird?
I mean, I agree with you. It makes sense in my head. I'm not sure if it makes sense for the rest of people.
So I think this is where like what you're doing, Asper, is like, you know, I haven't asked you how old you are and stuff like that, but like I think this is what really growing up is about. So we're told our entire life to do particular things, and we're told if you do these things, then you will be happy. But somewhere along the way, we have to sort of discover what happiness means for us, whether following the script. And there's still good reasons to, you know, graduate from college without it sort of making us feel happy forever. But I think now is a really important, because like, I'm glad you're learning this now, actually, because I've worked with some people who are a little bit, I'm assuming older than you are, but maybe you're older, who knows? But there are a lot of people who we sort of call it a treadmill, right? Or like stair stepper, where you keep on achieving stuff, and then it's what's next? It's like, okay, college, now you have to get this job. You start out as an analyst, then you get promoted to an associate, then you get promoted to a senior associate, then you get promoted to a vice president, then you get promoted to a senior vice president, and people are like, when does this get fun?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking. Like, when does the fun come? Like, just when is it coming?
Yeah. So what do you think? When do you think it comes?
I don't know. Just like 1 year before, I thought the fun would come when I graduated.
Yep.
So now I don't know.
It'll come when you get the do you have a job? Are you getting a job, Asper?
No, I mean, I graduated like last week, so I haven't had time to even do
So I'm
anything.
sure it'll come when you find the job, right?
I don't know anymore.
Good. I'm glad you're actually one step ahead of the game if you're not thinking, okay, like it'll come when I have the job. Because then if you get the job, you know what you'll say next? It'll come when I get promoted.
Oh, I was going to say it'll come when I retire. But
Oh, yeah. And eventually it'll come when you retire. Yeah, that's a great way. That's how, you know, so you live your whole life so that you can have fun for the last, 20 years. And then you retire.
that sounds awful.
It is awful. So here's the thing. Enjoyment is not about achievement, which is really confusing for a lot of people. You know, people say it's about the journey, not the destination. Have you heard that before?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, what do you think about that?
So experience-wise, it makes sense, but it doesn't make sense to me. Like, then why do we chase achievement so much if it isn't even rewarding? Like, I have thought about the achievement of getting to high school, getting to college, getting to everything, and every time I keep thinking the next one's going to be the one, but it never is. So why do we do that?
That's a good question. What do you think?
I have no idea, honestly.
So I think there are 2 or 3 big reasons. The first is that we look at people who have achieved, who appear to be happy, and we can't duplicate internal work, but we can duplicate external work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so like if you see someone happy, you say, I'm gonna do the same thing.
Exactly.
Like he's achieved so much.
So we as human beings, what we notice, what like we can't measure what goes on in someone's mind, but we can measure what they do. Right?
Can you repeat that last part?
Yeah, so like we can see what they do. We can't see what happens in their mind.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So that's a piece of it. So that's where like I don't know if this makes sense, but so, you know, when I was studying to become a monk, what people noticed is that like monks don't eat like very tasty food. Like they don't eat like unhealthy, like they don't eat cakes and cookies and things like that, right? So what people assumed is they're like, okay, if I want to be spiritual, I need to restrict my eating. And if I stop eating tasty food, then I will become more spiritual and I will learn to control my desires and all that kind of stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The problem is they're confusing what comes first. It's not restricting food that allows a monk to not eat, to become like in control. It's their ability to like take a step back from desires. They conquer the desire first, and then it makes no difference what they eat. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so like, okay, I think I get it. It's like, it's not that they eat healthy stuff to get in control, but it's just a consequence of
Yes.
being in
So
control.
once they become in control through their meditative practice, then like they don't care what they eat, right? Because they're no longer controlled by their desires. The problem is that what people see is, oh, look, that person is in control of their desires and they never eat pizza. Therefore, if I do what they do, I will become in control of my desires. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So like, if you go to like, I may have seen people that are graduating, like they're working and they're happy, and so I thought, okay, so they have graduated and are happy, and so I will be happy if I graduate too.
Exactly. Right? So we sometimes get confused between, you know, where does the happiness come from? Does it come from the achievement? Because the achievement is what we see. What we don't see, for example, so we've had a couple people who have called in today who have done therapy for a year or two or many. So when we see someone who's like, so there are a couple people called in today who had their life together. And when you see someone who has their life together, you see them going to work, you see them whistling and stuff like that, and you're like, I don't know how this person happened. You never see the 2 years they spent in therapy. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
So why do we like focus on achievement? Because it's the only thing that's easily measurable. You can't measure the internal work that people do to find happiness. That's the first reason.
Okay.
Reason number 2 is that there are advantages towards prioritizing this kind of stuff. And we sort of know that, like, you know, if you're like homeless and you have no money and have no relationships, the chances that you're happy are lower, right? So there is some correlation scientifically with achievement and happiness. Like, at least you're not beating yourself up for dropping out of college or failing out of college. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess that does make sense.
So there is some kind of correlation there, but basically it's like what we can measure. And the third thing is that when we are unhappy, the mind does something very, very subtle. It looks at what we don't have and assumes that getting that thing will make us happy. Right?
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
so if I'm lonely, I assume that a relationship will make me happy. If I haven't graduated from college, what someone will do is they'll look at you, they'll look at Asper, and they'll be like, I feel so bad about myself, I failed out of college. If I had graduated, I would have been happy today. If I was in a relationship, I would be happy today. If I was promoted, I would be happy. So they look at their own unhappiness and they assume that an external thing will fix their happiness, which is why we chase achievement.
Okay. So I have one question. Like,
Great.
so I think I get what you mean. The thing now is, then how the hell am I supposed to be happy?
Fantastic question.
Like, I don't know, my whole life has always been like those frames. And so if this is not giving me happiness, then what am I supposed to do?
Beautiful. Okay, so have you ever been happy?
I mean, I guess
Well,
I have had moments of happiness, but in the sense like being comfortable, like in long term, I don't think so, because there's always like, no, I'm not ready yet
not ready for what?
to be happy.
Oh, so I'm not sure I understood that. What do you mean by not ready to
So-
be happy?
It feels like there's this feels like you haven't completed the game yet. To like if the bounty is happiness, you still have a lot of like quests to do.
Yes, yes. So
But until you get those quests, you can't really be happy. That's unfortunately, that's how my brain looks at
Excellent.
stuff.
And that's why you're not happy. Right?
I guess.
Because you're assuming that you have to do all these things to be happy. So now, Asper, you're in a beautiful place. Okay? So you have to now learn what is happiness and where does it come from. So let's think about this. So the first is you have this assumption that it comes from achievement. And so now you're in the phase of your life where you have to figure out where happiness comes from. And the interesting thing is that we actually have very clear answers about where happiness comes from. So, but we just don't teach this stuff, okay? So let's try to teach you in a moment the secret to happiness in life. So you said there are moments of your life where you've been happy, right? But
Yeah,
you're not happy globally or permanently.
Yeah, I guess it's important to say, when I say what I think about happiness, as in long term, I feel like being comfortable with both my situation and myself, and being happy about it. This is good.
Okay, are you comfortable with yourself and your situation?
I feel like there's so much work to do. I feel like I just got out of college, so now my brain's like, no, you're not ready until you get really achieved professionally, and you are able to have your own house, for example. I don't know.
Okay, so I think those are all good goals, but I think what you should do is pay attention to your happiness as you move towards them. So do you feel more, so one step is college, right? So
Yeah.
Do you feel happier now that you're done with college?
A big weight has been off my shoulders, but overall the reaction my brain has been pretty underwhelming.
Okay, good.
I would say.
So let's understand theories of happiness. So number one theory of happiness is that happiness is like building a house where I can put up the frame, I can then put on the roof, I can then add the windows, I can put in a door, I can put in the kitchen, I can put in the plumbing, the bathroom, and all that kind of stuff. But the house isn't complete until everything is done. So it's not like I even feel 10%. When 10% of that house is completed, I don't feel like I have 10% of a house. Does that make sense? It's not a home until it's once you hit 100% completion rate, then you have a home. So happiness could be like that, where you can go to college, you can get a job, you can buy a house, and once everything is done, then you will be happy at the end when you're 60 years old. Right?
Yeah, I think that's definitely how my mind sees it.
That's how we
right
sort of
now.
think about it, is the completionist approach to happiness. But let's think about so you've never felt permanently happy, right?
No, definitely. I don't think
right?
so.
And that's where the completionist theory is. It's we say okay, once everything is done, then you'll be permanently happy, right?
Yeah.
Okay, do we know that permanent happiness exists?
I don't know. You do hear stories of people saying that they achieved happiness.
So
they got the achievement called happiness.
Yeah, and what do they say about it? Have you ever talked to them?
Well, not from the top of my head. I don't know if I can think of someone that says that, and I have talked to them.
Okay, right. So this is a great place to start. Is have you met someone who you feel is permanently happy?
No, probably not.
Okay, so now this is kind of scary, Asper, because we're chasing something that may not exist. Right? And if it does exist and we meet people, we could just ask them, hey, how did you become happy? And we can just listen to what they say. Right?
Yeah, but then they will say, each one has to have their own home. You can just copy other person's home and assume that will give you.
Hold on. Don't do that. You're coming up with answers that are not based in reality.
Yeah, that's what the mind would say.
Yeah, so that's what your mind says, right? Because you're not permanently happy. So the whole point is we're not going to trust that organ. Because if we meet someone who's super happy, we can ask them and see what they say. So what do you know about happiness?
What I do know about happiness, well, now I'm not so sure.
No, but they're good. So now we're going to start questioning things. But what do you know about times in your life where you've been happy? Like, have you ever been happy for even a brief period of time?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah, so tell me about it.
So it's maybe a bit too specific and silly, but the recent one was I was playing Monster Hunter with a friend, and just there's a in the final boss there's a moment where you like activate something called the Dragonator, and you attack the final boss, and then this really epic music kicks in, and that I was really happy at that moment. I was feeling it. I think that's the recent most happy moment I've had.
Okay.
This everything was so epic.
Okay. And so let's unpack that a little bit. What do you think it was that made that moment happy?
I I don't know. It's everything was like so epic. I was like having so much fun, and I felt really immersed in that at the moment. And I was with a friend, and we were both like, "Yeah, let's go." And yeah, it was a little bit of everything, I guess.
Okay. A little bit of everything, meaning what were the components?
Um, Fun game, epic music, good friends, winning, I guess, and just entering kind of that flow state in the game.
Ah, interesting. Okay. So if you were to play Monster Hunter again with a friend and you were to beat the game again or fight the final boss, would you be equally happy?
We did repeat the final boss yesterday, and I got close to that point. Maybe not the first, because the first time you're just like you don't expect that the music and everything. It was just the first time for everything, but it did get close.
Okay.
You know, the game clicked, and I felt really comfortable playing, and like the moves were snapping into place, I guess.
Okay. So I think there's a lot of answers here. So first of all, so you did it with a friend. It was a particular boss. It was the end of the game. The music is the same both times, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, why aren't, if all of the circumstances are the same, why isn't the happiness the same? What's different between time number 1 and time number 2?
The expectation, I guess.
Okay, so that's really important, right? So you could say it's the novelty. So one
Yeah.
option is that in order to be happy, we have to keep on doing new stuff. And so what that means is that I can never eat at the same restaurant twice because that's going to reduce my happiness. I can never be in the same relationship for longer than 6 months because dating more people means more happiness. I can't play the same video game over and over and over and over and over again. I have to constantly be playing new video games, right? What do you think about that?
No, that would be a complete train wreck.
Okay. So it's not novelty. And yet there's a difference between time number 1 and time number 2. And you come down to this phrase expectation. So,
Yeah.
have you seen Morbius?
I have not. Nor I have seen most of the memes. I'm actually quite lost. I don't really know why Morbius is all over the place.
Right? So, like, Morbius is a great example of expectation. So some people, even they re-released the movie because they were like, oh, this is such a meme. Everyone's it's so funny. People will enjoy the movie because it's so bad. But it's like, it's a classic example of like just everything with expectation going wrong. It's a crap movie. It's a meme, but no one's going to enjoy it even if it's a meme. So the first thing to understand about happiness is expectation. So like getting a gift on your birthday that you really, really love is fantastic. Do you think you would enjoy that gift more or less if you got it on a day that was not your birthday?
Yeah, I think I'd get it. Like if I got it just some random day and I didn't expect it, it would be like it would be more of a surprise, like a pleasant surprise.
Right? So now let me ask you a question. So let's say I get a mediocre gift on a random day of the week. and I get a mediocre gift on my birthday, which one am I going to enjoy more?
I'm definitely going to enjoy more the mediocre, like in a random day.
Right? Because even if I get the
didn't
same
count
damn
on-
gift on my birthday and it's mediocre, what am I going to feel?
Disappointed.
What the? It's the same damn gift. But on one day, it results in disappointment, and on another day, it's a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, that
And so,
I see what you did there.
and so here we are, like we're looking at, oh, like look at that person has a new Apple Watch. They must be so happy. Has nothing to do with the Apple Watch. They could be happy, but it's all around the circumstances of our mind. So you mentioned a couple of other things. So the first thing that I want you to think about is expectation. Because what's different? I didn't expect the music to be so epic. By the way, Asper, thanks for ruining the end of Monster Hunter for everyone, because now we know it's going to be an epic experience, and none of us are going to enjoy it quite as much.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
You get what I'm saying, though?
No, but
I'm joking, but
I didn't say what monster though.
yeah, sure. But now we know that there's epic music, right? So the moment that we start to expect something, our happiness is going to decline.
Yeah.
Second thing is you said you were immersed in Monster Hunter. You were feeling it, right? You were completely there in the present moment.
Yeah.
So this is where there's a very old, very simple principle. You can't be anxious in the present, and you can't have regret in the present. Anxiety is in the future, and regret is in the past. So,
Wait, can you repeat that last part?
yeah, so anxiety is in the future, and regret is in the past.
Okay. Yeah.
So when my mind is making a mistake, I'm totally fine. Regret happens afterward. When I'm about to make a mistake and after I've made a mistake, my mind can be disturbed. But when I'm immersed in the present is when I'm having a really good time. Does that make sense?
That's kind of mind blowing. It feels right.
Yep. Right. So now you have to experiment with this stuff. So this is why people love the flow state, because even if you're thinking about work, people say, okay, work isn't fun. But I've had times of my life, like this is actually close to one of them, where I'm having a blast. I'm working right now. Right? It's all about being present and free of expectation. If you do two things, you will be happy. It's simple.
This is already helping because I already catch myself thinking like, yeah, I should be a streamer.
Okay.
So it was like, so you're happy working and you're a streamer. I should be a streamer too, therefore I'd be happy. But I catch myself thinking.
Yeah, you got to be very dangerous. I don't think this, I'm just talking to someone. I just happen to be streaming. I don't think of myself as a streamer. I'm, but what?
What do you mean? You're the best.
Well, I appreciate that, but So this is what this is the other thing, Asper, that I'll tell you is that there's also this idea that there is that happiness is like a permanent state that you can achieve. And the more that we sort of try to like make a life that will automatically give us happiness is when we really shoot ourselves in the foot.
Yeah.
Because the truth of the matter is that happiness is about the present moment, and you can't be happy forever. And it's that thought that everyone's like, I want to make happiness like guaranteed. It's the guarantee of happiness that prevents us from ever being happy. Does that make sense? Once you start to realize that happiness is only temporary, that's the most it ever gets. It transforms the way that you live your life. Because then it's
more like living the moment.
Exactly. And then you also appreciate, because you recognize that the joy that I feel in this moment, there's no way to make it last forever. This is only going to last for this moment in time. So man, I'm going to enjoy every second of it. The music is epic. I have the Dragonator. My friend is here. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity that I will never be able to get back. And then you start to live your life with intensity and passion that is completely foreign to everyone who's looking for a promotion. The really bizarre thing is that when you start living your life this way, you start getting promoted. Because you're doing your work with passion and intensity, and your boss sees it and you're like, wow, this person is amazing. And then they promote you. And everyone sees you and they're like, this person is promoted and they're loving life, therefore I should get promoted too. And what they don't realize is what's on the inside.
Damn. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Just it makes too much sense. So I'm a bit like Stan. You just Stan lock me, Dr. K.
Okay, well. Thankfully, there's no KO coming. It's just a stun lock, and I'm gonna wait till the stun wears off, and then we're right.
Oh, that was great.
So, Asper, I want you to start studying yourself. Look for happiness today alone. Now, this doesn't mean that you should live a life of hedonism, because even if you try that, you'll discover that that's not the case, because we've already figured out, I playing Monster Hunter all day long is not going to make you happy. Right? You've already, that's it. That was just the one chance. And you can go chasing games time and time and time. It's not going to work. What you'll actually discover is other things will kind of make you happy. What you'll really discover is happiness is not in the object itself, fundamentally, but it's in here. And it's in your presence and your expectation. And once you realize that happiness is temporary, then you'll start to really love life.
Sounds great.
Awesome.
Okay.
Good luck to you.
Thanks a lot, Dr. K.
You're very welcome. Asper.
That was like, I expected it to be useful, but not so much. Like, damn. Okay.
Okay. Well,
no,
so
that was good. That was good.
We'll only disappoint you next time.
Well, maybe like the second time we beat the monster, it's still going to be good.
Okay. Well, I'm glad it was useful to you, Asper. It was an absolute pleasure for me.
Yeah, I'm glad, and hopefully people can relate to this.
Oh, I think everyone's relating to it. It's a really common problem where we're taught to chase happiness without even being taught what it is.
It's also like sometimes just I wanted to say, like, sometimes it's hard, like, because you see in the community all of these people that have all of these problems and things, and then you're always like, so where's the space for people who actually have it okay? Like, my life's going perfectly fine and still. So I don't know, it's it's kind of weird, but it feels good to hear that I still have problems that can be solved. It's not like, yeah, this is the peak of life. My life is perfect. No, it's not.
Asper, you're just getting started.
Sorry, yeah, I tend to do that. I'm sorry.
No, that's great. No, I love it. It makes me happy to hear. I'm very excited for the journey that you're just beginning to walk. And I think you're quite blessed to discover this confusion at such an early age. Because what people will do is they'll live their whole life assuming that next year they'll be happy. And their entire life will pass them by.
Hopefully that's not me.
I don't think it is. And I also want to really appreciate what you said, that sometimes, this community becomes the most prominent voices are the ones that are suffering, and we're here to help those people too, for sure. But I think that part of what this community is it's more than just, those people. Those people absolutely belong here. But everyone is allowed, no matter whether you're advanced in life or not advanced in life or however you want to rank it, everyone's welcome here, and everyone we're here to support everyone and help everyone grow. Whether you're a seed, a sapling, a tree, we're still here to help you grow, no matter how far you are. And I really appreciate your perspective.
Yeah, like the feeling that you don't deserve to suffer because you're doing so well.
Yeah, no, but so as we'll discover one day, maybe we'll talk about this one day, where we've discovered what happiness is, and we can also understand what suffering is. And the interesting thing that, this is what the Buddha learned and discovered, is that no amount of achievement will make you immune to suffering. In the same way that no amount of achievement will guarantee you happiness or contentment.
Yeah, that makes
Cool. Thank you so much for
sounds
calling
great.
in. I think this is a fantastic call to end with, and I'm really glad we did one more.
Yeah, I'm glad to.
Take care.
This is as a joke. It feels really weird to hear you actually live. I still feel like I'm just watching a stream and talking to myself.
Okay.
It's really weird. But yeah, you take care. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much
Take care.
for this and for everything in general.
Of course. Thank you so much for calling in, Asper. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah, the one thing that I have no idea how to advise people on is like the surrealness of talking to Dr. K. I have no idea. I don't know what to do about that. Like, I think we're just chilling, yo. That's the thing. So the celebrity is it's an expectation, right? It's an idea. It's not a real thing. Like, I'm just a normal person, and y'all are just normal people. Like, there's really no difference. But anyway, I just don't know how to respond. It's like, okay, like, you know, it's like, what do you, anyway, I'm struggling. I have stuff to learn too. So it looks like I'm going to be learning about that. Okay. So we're not going to teach meditation today because I'm still a little bit sick. So we'll hopefully pick back up with meditation teaching on Wednesday. But I just wanted to let everyone know, first of all, I really enjoyed this today. I hope y'all enjoyed it too. I think it was really fantastic. I want to just give a huge shout out to everyone on Discord, our mod team and stuff like that for finding such awesome people in our community, for those of you, for our community, for existing, right? Because I want y'all to understand this. Like, everyone looks, oh, Dr. K. I want y'all to understand this, that everything that happened today takes two to tango. So huge shout out to everyone who decided to come on. Their questions, the way they frame things, for those of you that were like, oh, this resonates with me, like, this is exactly me, like, you know, oh, thank you. Like, it takes the bravery and courage and introspection of everyone who called in to make this magic happen. And Healthy Gamer is really not about Dr. K, it's about y'all, right? It's about, like, the problems that we face and what we struggle with and things like that. And I think that, like, I don't know if that really makes sense, but I genuinely, I'm not just saying this, but I genuinely believe that there's a perfection to every person that called in today and where they are in life and how they struggle. There's even a perfection in that. And if you think about this moment that we created, right? Each person that called in has done all of their work ahead of time. One dude has gone to 5 therapists over 7 years and has been working so hard to create this perfect moment of understanding for him and everyone else who's watching. And so oftentimes we don't realize this, but everything that we do sets us up for these moments. And capitalizing on those moments is actually about how we behave in the present. All of that effort that person has put into, can you imagine if they'd only seen one therapist, then I would have said, go see a therapist, they'll fix your problems. And so everything that life happens in life is a confluence of events. And especially when we feel like, oh my God, things are so terrible, we're screwed. Even if climate change destroys the human race and the world comes to an end, that was one hell of a run, right? Nothing lasts forever. And so everything in your life that is absolutely hard, I'm not saying it's hard, I'm not saying you don't deserve a break, I'm not saying you shouldn't change it for the better. And at the same time, appreciate that everything that happens has created the person that you are today. Dr. K was not born just out of becoming a doctor and you know, training at Massachusetts General Hospital and Harvard Medical School and all that good stuff. Dr. K was born also every night when I was 18 years old, struggling and playing too many video games and falling asleep and being alone and going to parties and not knowing how to socialize. And it's like, it's the confluence of everything that we are. And in that same way, everything that y'all just don't, in a sense, it's kind of arrogant for me to say this, maybe I'm wrong, but I really have faith that you just don't realize what you're becoming. When you look at a seed, you don't see the tree, you don't see the flowers, and you definitely don't see or taste the fruit. So everyone alive today is in a process of becoming. And so that process can be painful. We're not saying it's easy or pretty or pleasant. And at the same time, have a little bit of faith in yourself. And if you thought today's stream was beautiful, recognize that this beauty cannot be created without the suffering that I've gone through and every caller has gone through, without the questions and uncertainty that every person who called in today with. And that's life. And so we're going to help y'all as best as we can, and y'all are going to help each other as best as you can. And thank you very much for being here today. And thank you to everyone who called in. Huge shout out to our content team and mod team for making this happen. Really fantastic. Because that's what we want to showcase, is that life isn't all these like achievements and all this kind of crap, right? It's the whole spectrum of it. And when you appreciate every spectrum, every piece of the spectrum, if you go and you watch Morbius, that'll make you love other movies even more, right? You can't appreciate Dota without playing League of Legends, and you can't appreciate League of Legends without playing Dota. You can't appreciate Valorant without playing Overwatch. You know, it's like it all comes together. I haven't seen Morbius. I barely understand the memes, chat. Like, I don't even... Who are we rating today? Okay, which streamer is the closest to Morbin time? That's the question. Hirona. Okay, Trooper Copper. GTA 5? What do y'all think? GTA? Botez? Chess? Germa sounds like a debate. It sounds like something that I'm not gonna understand. I typed in Germa. Germa's not even live. 192 followers? Germa 985. Okay. That's different. See, here's the thing. When there's a short word that ends in a vowel, I just assume that it's going to be... Okay, we can raid Germa. Well, it's Germa 985. That's completely different, okay? And it looks like they're playing Smite, so let's raid Germa. Join Epic Coin. I don't know what this means. Dude, a 9-minute queue? What is this? Oh, crap. I need to have someone do the raid for me, I think. Hold on. No, I got it. Okay, Botez or Germa? Y'all tell me. Germa. Okay, we're going to do Germa. Okay. Smite stream. Let's go. Maybe we'll play Smite one day. Maybe I'll install it. Who knows? We'll see. Okay, here we go. Ready to raid in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Take care, chat. We'll see y'all on Wednesday.